Okay, this video is for my menopausal women who are struggling to lose weight. I got you. I understand it. And you know, the weight loss game with menopause is a whole different game. And this is what sideswipes us. So on this video, I want to dive into some of the things that many of you are struggling with, like belly fat, or like your diet that you did forever is now causing you to gain weight, or maybe you're losing muscle. These are some of the things we start to see as we move into those menopausal years. I want to explain why they happen and what you can do about it, more importantly. And, you know, hopefully you all know that my purpose for these videos, and especially when I'm talking about hormones, especially when I'm talking about menopause, is I want you to understand you're not alone and it's not your fault. And menopause really, of all the times in a woman's life, is that moment that just seems to sideswipe us with so many things. Okay, the first is, let's talk about what causes a woman to gain weight throughout menopause. I mean, and some days, some days I sit with my menopausal friends and, there's this moment of like, what is going on? What was that? Like, I was just going along my life. All of a sudden my brain wasn't working. My joy went down. I started gaining weight. I'm not sleeping. Like, honestly, if you have a menopausal woman in your life, give her a hug and give her some grace, because we're trying to understand ourselves. It's quite a process. But when it comes to weight loss, what I want you to know is that as estrogen goes down, you become more insulin resistant. So the diet you did at 45 is going to store more fat than if you did that same diet at 25 or 35. So this is why we've got to start looking at fasting more. And for my menopausal women, I wrote about this in the Menopause Reset. I even made it an easy read. You can pick this thing up and read it in within a day and apply it. And I show you how to vary fast and vary foods so that you can unstick that insulin resistance, because there's insulin resistance and then there's insulin resistance for the menopausal woman. Second thing that I want you to think about is belly fat. So with belly fat, I know it's the least favorite part of fat. I mean, it's not like we like fat at all, but belly fat is the one that's like, especially if you're like trying to get the rest of your body going, and belly fat in menopausal women can have a bloated feeling to it. So here's what I want you to realize is that, just like I say all the time, that all fat is excess. What menopausal body fat is excess estrogen and excess cortisol. Okay, once we got that clear, what can we do to get rid of excess estrogen and excess cortisol? So the first thing we can do is let's clear the estrogen. Get it out of your system. So if you're perimenopausal and you still have a period and you're getting that spike, usually around day, 12, 13, you're going to get a release of an egg, which is when estrogen peaks, and then now estrogen has to clear out of your system. And so it's got to go out through your stools. It'll go into your circulation, and if your detox pathways are shut, it'll stay in your belly and creates that bloatedness. So the first thing is, let's work with the detox pathway of the gut. And we can do that simply by eating more leafy green. If you got away with less greens in your 30s, you don't get away with less greens in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. So up your greens, more salads is going to help you clear that estrogen. The other interesting part about estrogen, clearing estrogen, is you might need to skip the alcohol, because your liver is breaking down estrogen along with a lot of other things. But when we have a glass of wine, which I get it, a glass of wine calms that menopausal agitation. But if we're doing it too much, what happens is the liver prioritizes processing the alcohol and not breaking estrogen down. So you might need to get rid of the alcohol to get your body to lose that weight. The other thing that I want to point out is that we do have some hacks for opening up the digestive system, opening up your liver. Castor oil packs are one of my favorite hacks. You just put it right over your abdomen. You can put it over your liver, and you just go at night, put it on. It needs to be on for about 2 hours. Make sure the castor oil is organic, but that can be a real powerful way to mobilize some of that toxic estrogen that gets stuck. I personally love to put a little activated charcoal if I'm going to do a castor oil pack at night. I love activated charcoal to make sure that something's binding to the release of estrogen that's happening inside my microbiome as I'm sleeping. So we can really look at that belly fat as just accumulation of estrogen. Let's mobilize her. So those are some of my tips there. The other thing that we know about belly fat is that it's cortisol. cortisol. And so remember that when we have too much cortisol, what we need to do is go move. So when you end up having a lot of stressful moments, if you're a menopausal woman and you're dealing with that belly fat, when stress hits, move. Do not sit. Move. And might have to move 5-6 times. I literally walk around my neighborhood often, 6-7 times a day, and it's not always long. Sometimes it's like I go out the door and let me go around the block, and then I go back in and I go back to work. So move your body. If you don't have a place you can go safely walk, do air squats. I've talked about that here, where you're just squatting up and down. You just gotta move glucose, move cholesterol so it doesn't stick in you, and it's most important to do it after a meal and after you've had a stressful situation. Okay, the third issue with menopausal weight gain that I see a lot is losing muscle. Now, this is interesting because I think what happens is that a lot of times we lose muscle, but we don't notice because we're so focused on getting rid of the accumulating fat areas. But maybe the accumulating fat areas are because we lost muscle. You have to fight for muscle after 40. And what's interesting is that after about 35, 40, as your ovaries start to go into retirement, what the body will do is it'll hand over the job of sex hormone making to your adrenal gland. And if your adrenals are really overtaxed, they have to pull nutrients from somewhere. So what your adrenals will do is they will start to break down muscle to get their requirements so that they can make you sex hormones. So you break muscle down. Now, the problem with that, you might like what your number says on your scale. You might like that your clothes fit a little looser, but you need muscle as you move through menopause, because in muscle is more insulin receptor sites. The more muscle you have, the more insulin receptor sites you are going to have. So the name of the menopausal weight loss game is build more muscle. You'll have more ability when glucose comes in. Remember, you're more insulin resistant. So when all of a sudden glucose comes in, we have more receptor sites for insulin to shove glucose into so it doesn't store it as fat. So let's make sure we're building muscle. The other way to build muscle outside of strength training is eating more protein. 20-30 grams every meal is going to help to build up muscle. It's going to help to create more of these insulin receptor sites. So to me, for menopausal women, muscle building has two arms to it. You have the arm of making sure that you're actually strengthening those muscles, and then you have the arm of making sure you're eating enough protein. And when you do that, now your belly fat goes away, the hip fat goes away. You start to see that the fat drops off of you. That's how important muscle is. Okay, number 4. This is one that I see a lot. I experienced myself, and that is this feeling of I just don't feel like working out anymore. A lot of us experience this as we go through menopause, and if you experience it, put it in the comments, because I want people to know that this is a normal situation as we go, especially through our perimenopausal year. And this is tied to a sex hormone called testosterone. Your testosterone is your motivation and drive hormone. It's what makes you want to go and work out. And the precursor to testosterone is a nutrient steroid called DHEA. And DHEA makes cortisol, it makes progesterone, and it makes testosterone. So if you're under a lot of stress, then all that DHEA goes to cortisol. It'll go to progesterone next, and it'll go to testosterone last. So I started to notice this in my own life around 46, 47. I just stopped craving working out, and it's bummed me out. I've been a competitive athlete my whole life. Exercise was my drug of choice. Okay, I gotta interrupt this video because I have a free guide for you so you can master fasting. It's called A Beginner's Guide to a Fasting Lifestyle, and all you've got to do is click here and you can jump right in. But I didn't crave it, and so I ran a Dutch test on myself. I looked at my hormones and I saw how low that testosterone was. I saw how low my DHEA was, and it got me thinking about balancing my life a little bit more, creating less stress, but also supplementing in with DHEA. And some of you may choose to supplement or go down the bioidentical route with testosterone. Just make sure you work closely with a practitioner that's used to bioidenticals. But bringing testosterone back up isn't for the menopausal woman, isn't just about libido. It is about your desire to work out. And I can tell you, as I worked with my DHEA, I worked with my testosterone levels, I actually crave working out at 53 a lot more than I craved working out at 48. And that's because I understood the principles of what gave me that desire to work out. Okay, and then the last one that I have here for you is one that that I know happens a lot, happened to me, shocked me, and that is the back of the arm fat. Now, I'm full transparency. I remember like in my mid-40s turning and looking like seeing my reflection in the mirror on a car and being like, whoa, what is going on with the back of my arm? It was like all of a sudden I could feel like cellulite coming in over there, and it was like overnight. So I've done a whole video on back of the arms because for my own desire, I was like trying to figure this out. And the first thing that I want you to do is when we look at the back of the arms, where fat tends to accumulate, yes, it can be the loss of muscle, but a lot of times cellulite is just toxins. It's just excess again. It's just excess stored there. So let's mobilize the toxins. So the first way to mobilize toxins is to minimize toxins. Look at your beauty products. Look at your plastic bottles. Look at your toxic load. I've done a lot of videos on that. I talk a ton about, I put list after list of toxins in the menopause reset. So look at your toxic influx and let's start to minimize that. Second thing is it may be time to detox. Fasting is a light detox. We've got infrared saunas. We've got opening up detox pathways. I've done videos on a lot of videos on detox. I'm sure my team will put some of those videos in here for you to benefit from. But it might be time to start to mobilize those toxins. And the last thing I'm going to say on this, on the back of the arm fat, is that something that I noticed works really well is autophagy fast. And let's talk about what autophagy fasting is and why it works so well. And one of the reasons is autophagy, the term autophagy, is an inner sensor inside the cell that senses that nutrients have gone down and that glucose has gone down. And so there's no influx of nutrients into the cellular part. So you need like CoQ10, you need B vitamins, things like that to power up your mitochondria, and you need glucose to power up your mitochondria. But if the little inner doctor inside your cells doesn't sense that you're getting nutrients or glucose, then it actually will go into this autophagy state, which is a beautiful state. And it looks around the cell and it's like, hey, you, endoplasmic reticulum, you are not working right. I'm gonna have to come on over here and clean you up a little bit more. Hey, mitochondria, the outside of your membrane is congested with toxins. I need to go in there and clean that up. Sometimes the intelligence even looks around and goes, okay, hot mess in here. This is not a good cell. Let's go ahead and kill this cell and get rid of it, and let's replace it with a healthier version. It's crazy when you look at the intelligence inside these cells. So with that in mind, when we go into autophagy fasting, I wrote about autophagy fasting. It's my favorite type of fasting in Fast Like a Girl, so go grab that book. But with autophagy fasting, what we're doing is we're getting these toxins out, we're getting new cells, and you'll start to see a lot of the fat, a lot of the cellulite that you don't like starts to clear up because of the power of autophagy. That's how powerful you are designed. So if you are struggling to lose your menopausal weight, I really cannot say enough that it's so important that you understand that there was a hormonal transition that happened and perhaps you didn't get the memo. I see this all the time with menopausal women. It's like, I don't know why this is happening to me. This is what I'm trying to stop. This is why I'm writing books on hormones and I'm doing these videos to like stop the cultural ignorance. After 40, hormones change, which makes your whole body change, which causes you to gain weight. It's not because you're undisciplined. It's not because you were cursed with poor genetics. There was a hormonal shift that was going on that you didn't get the memo about, and now it's causing you to gain weight. So let's start to unwind it. And that is what I'm showing you here in this video. So if you love this video, you're gonna wanna check out this video. It's kind of the sucky part of menopause is that we get a toxic dump. So when we look at unwinding the menopausal weight, we've got to look at making you insulin sensitive and look at detox.